Hi, it's Michelle with Books Cause Insomnia. Today I am going to go through my November TBR stack. This one's going to be a little bit different. I already filmed this video, and when I went to edit it, I discovered that I hated it. So I decided to refilm it. And because of that, when I played my TBR game, well, that footage is all gone now. So I can show you which prompts I ended up drawing and which books I chose, but unfortunately I'm not going to have footage of me playing that game in this video. But then I was also curious, do you guys even want to see me playing the game, or do you just want to see what I drew and what the prompts were and what book I chose? I'd love to hear your input on that, because I don't want to bore anybody by playing the game on camera if you're not excited to see that part of it. So just let me know what you think. The first book I want to talk to you about is a book that has not arrived yet. It's my book of the month selection. I ended up choosing The Family by Naomi Krupitsky. And this book is about, well, first of all, it's a historical fiction novel about two girls in the early, I think it was the early 20th century, who are daughters of mobsters, and they grow up together and they're friends. Their names are Sophia and Antonia. And then there comes a point where something happens, and it's one of those one fateful night kind of situations where their loyalty is tested and one of them has to pull a trigger before it's too late. I don't know what that means. Like, does one of them kill the other one? Or is it they just make a decision that changes their lives forever? I'm not sure. But my husband and I have been watching The Sopranos lately, and I've been in a big mobster kind of mood, so I had to pick that one. And then add to it, one of my favorite movies of all time is Casino. So hopefully this book fulfills that mob-loving side of me. The new release that I ended up selecting is The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. This book is about a woman named Jane. Jane decides to marry a man for the wrong reasons. If I remember what I read correctly, it was she was marrying him for his money. And he tells her, I guess he owns multiple mansions or something, and he tells her that she's not allowed to go to one of them. I don't know. But there's an emergency one night, and she has to go to one of the places, and it happens to be the one that she's near is the one that she's not supposed to go to. So she shows up anyway, and apparently she discovers her husband, her new husband, in some kind of an altered state, as in, like, maybe not quite human. Like, he's, I don't know, was he a shapeshifter, a werewolf? I don't know. But everything changes from there. And I just think that sounds pretty cool. It's, from what I have read up on this book, it's a very like gothic, Victorian kind of horror novel. I am going to be reading We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. It's a group buddy read of mine. We've been going, this group that I'm in, we've been going through a bunch of Grady Hendrix books. And this book is about a woman named Chris, who was in a really popular band that was just on the brink of making it big. And right before they made it big, one of the members kind of screwed everybody else over and went on his own. And everybody else has been left behind, and he's super successful. And she decides, you know what? All these years later, she's tired of being a manager at a Best Western, and she wants her music career back, and she wants to know what happened. So she's going to find out what happened. She's going to take it back. So she confronts the man that ruined her life. And her journey takes her from the Pennsylvania Rust Belt to a celebrity rehab center to a satanic music festival. What? It says that this book is an epic journey into the heart of a conspiracy-crazed, pill-popping, paranoid country that seems to have lost its very soul. So I'll probably be reading that in one evening, I'm thinking. I recently mentioned this book in a tag video, and I thought, I have to read it. I have to read it again, and I need a copy because I don't have the copy that I originally had anymore. And that is let me turn it to where it's not glaring at you there. The Christmas Box by Richard Paul Evans. This book is a very beautiful book, in my ever oh so humble opinion. It is a book about a man that is down on his luck. I think he got fired. It's been about 15-20 years since I've read it, so I'm a little rusty. But I think he got fired, and he's looking for a job. He finds a job in the want ads, back when people still looked at the newspaper for jobs. And he finds a job where he can be a groundskeeper and take care of this elderly lady who can't take care of herself anymore. And she's looking for somebody to also cook and clean and that kind of stuff. And in exchange, they get to live in her home for free. In like a grandmother's apartment kind of thing, off to the side. So he ends up bringing his wife and daughter to go live with this elderly lady. And they end up getting this amazing bond, this family bond, where it's like she's the grandmother that they wish they had for their daughter. And they go into this Christmas box and what the history of it is. They go into the meaning of Christmas, which after reading this book, I think the meaning of Christmas is love. I think that no matter what you may celebrate in December, any religion that there is, what they're celebrating in December, usually the theme of it is love or family. And they end up finding out all kinds of just heartbreaking things about the life that this old lady has led. One of the things is that she had lost her daughter. Her daughter died when she was, I want to say, about like 8 or 9 years old. And they all become family. It's just a really beautiful, what's the meaning of the holidays kind of story. It's only 125 pages long. And I really recommend it, especially if you're looking to get into the holiday spirit. And I plan on reading this book right around Thanksgiving, just to kind of move from turkey to Christmas trees. The rest of these books that I have are all from my TBR game. I decided to choose a bunch of books to read because I tend to read the most books in the late fall and throughout the winter. I just don't pick up as many books in the spring or summer. I selected the Two of Hearts, which is a book that's over 500 pages. That was the first one I selected. And I decided that that book was going to be Little Women. So thank you to my friend Kristen. She gifted me this book. She was getting rid of some books before a move of hers. I think she had 3 different copies of this and decided to only keep one, and she sent this to me. So thank you very much, Kristen. I'm excited to read this. If you're not familiar with Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, this book is a coming-of-age story about 4 sisters living in the Northeast during the Civil War. And I know I really like the movies. I've seen 3 of the movies. I don't know how many movies there are. If you do, let me know. But I've never got a chance to read the book. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I think this will really get me in that like cozy Thanksgiving mood. Then I picked a 7 of Spades, which is a book that starts with a B. And I thought, well, this is the perfect time then to read the next book in the Aurora Tea Garden series by Charlaine Harris, which that book is A Bone to Pick. Sorry about the glare there. This is the second book of the series. And in this book, Roe ends up going to 2 weddings and a funeral. And the funeral just happens to be of a friend / acquaintance of hers who obviously, well, they passed away. That's why she's going to their funeral. But she finds out after the funeral that she has inherited this woman's house. And in that house, she finds a skull. And that's all I know. But it sounds pretty good, actually. It's kind of a neat thought, just inheriting money in a house. I wouldn't complain. That's all I'm saying. Then I got the Queen of Spades, which is a book set in a place you've lived. It took me forever to find a book that takes place in a place I lived. I didn't realize how many books in my TBR stack that I didn't know where they take place. But the book that I selected is The Kind of Love That Saves You by Amy Yurk. This book takes place in the greater Seattle area, which is where I grew up. Sarah Strickland and her best friend Callista have been like sisters since the first day of kindergarten, sharing good times and weathering crises for more than 20 years. Together they've navigated the terrain of school, friendship, romances, breakups, love, and marriage. But in one shattering second, Sarah's world changes, and the landscape she enters is one she could not have envisioned. Much as Callista wants to help, she cannot comprehend this dark, emotional territory, and only time will tell if their friendship will be healed or torn apart forever. This book is actually a reread for me. I read this book, I want to say about 15 years ago. My sister-in-law recommended it. I got a copy, this copy. I read it and I loved it. And we talked about it after we both read it. We both literally cried multiple times in this book. It's very emotional. It doesn't sound like it would be, but it's super emotional. I ended up reading it a couple different times. I really enjoyed it and I wanted to read it again. So I decided to toss it back in my TBR stack. So here we go. I'll be reading it for, I think, the 4th time, which is probably a good thing because I don't remember much about it. Then I got the 4 of Spades. I got a lot of spades, like one right after the other. It was kind of crazy. So the book with an animal on the cover that I selected was The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. A heart-wrenching but deeply funny and ultimately uplifting story of family, love, loyalty, and hope. A captivating look at the wonders and absurdities of human life as only a dog could tell it. Other than that, all I know is this book is about a dog and his owner who go racing in like a sidecar, like one of those motorcycles with a sidecar. And I also know it was made into a movie. And I also think I might have heard that it was a tearjerker, so I might be crying a lot this month. Luckily, I just bought some Kleenex at Target, so I'm prepared. Then I got the 5 of Spades. See what I mean? It was a lot of spades, and I did shuffle the deck too. So I don't know how this happened, but the 5 of Spades is a tree or plant on the cover. And the book that I selected for that one was The Mulberry Tree by Jude Devereaux. This book is about a woman named Lillian who has a perfect marriage and her husband dies and she finds out that he was not who she thought he was. He is somebody totally different. And I don't know if that means that he led a mystery life, or maybe he did something really bad in the past that she didn't know about, or maybe it's like a stolen identity kind of thing. I don't know, but I'm going to find out and I will let you know what I thought of it. Up next was The 3 of Clubs, which is a book that is set during Halloween. Well, I had to think about this because even though I had some spooky books on my TBR last month that I didn't get to, most of them don't actually take place during Halloween. And So I decided that I'm going to read this one, my favorite horror story. I had selected this last month for my TBR stack, or, well, I didn't select it. It was part of the TBR game. And I figure one of these stories probably takes place during Halloween. And I also realized I was wrong. These aren't short stories by these authors. These are short stories selected by these authors. But aside from this one book, the entire TBR stack that I didn't end up reading last month, I've decided to just put back in on my bookshelf and get to it a later time, because I find that I tend to be very cyclical with reading. I want to read certain books at certain times of the year, and the rest of the books that I still had felt really Halloweenish to me, and I'm kind of over Halloween now, except for this book, because I happened to roll the dice and get this card. The last one that I picked was the Ten of Spades, which is a book with a 4-word title. And the one that I selected was Buried in a Bog by Sheila Connolly, which is a Cork County mystery. Honoring the wish of her late grandmother, Maura Donovan visits the small Irish village where her gran was born. Though she never expected to get bogged down in a murder mystery, nor had she planned to take a job in one of the local pubs, but she finds herself excited to get to know the people who knew her gran. In the pub, she's swamped with drink orders as everyone in town gathers to talk about the recent discovery of a nearly half-century-old body in a nearby bog. When Maura realizes she may know something about the dead man, and that he might be connected to another, more recent death, she fears she's about to become mired in a homicide investigation. Maura has a sinking feeling she may really be getting in over her head. And that's it. Those are the books that I plan on reading in the month of November. Obviously, this is just a guideline. I'm not holding myself to it in like a negative way. I'm hoping to read all of them, but we'll see. So stay tuned. I will be doing a mid-month check-in with the books that I read in the first 2 weeks, and then I'll also be doing a end-of-the-month wrap-up. Please let me know if you've read any of these. It'll help me get even more excited to read them. If I know that you've read them and maybe you liked them, or even if you didn't like them, still just let me know. And if you're planning on reading any of these, let me know. Or if you're not planning on reading any of these, if you have anything to say about any of these books, let me know. But thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Happy reading. Bye.